Alright, so hello everybody, we're going to be doing some character design for an FPS game, because I'm making an FPS game now, I guess. It's going to be a retro FPS game in the style of Unreal, one of my favorite FPS games of all time. Not because it's a great game or anything necessarily, but it's so nice to be in that world and be immersed by everything all around. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to Chrome. I'm gonna look for some references, because you gotta have references if you're making game art. One of the best ways to find interesting references is by browsing Pinterest. I was doing this game called Areas one time or another, and it's sort of Unreal type of game, but not quite. It's kind of there. But unfortunately, this folder doesn't have any character art things, so let's go back. And I have sci-fi art, but also here you mainly have like boots and bots and whatever. So then we have character design, and here we go, sci-fi metal. And if you want to do some art stuff and you don't have references in your face constantly, then you're not really doing a great job of making. Because when you're creating art, what most beginners want to do is they want to create art from like their own head. They want to create original art. But that's not how it works. If just creating art from your head, it's gonna look like a disaster, unless you have a lot of experience. But so how do you get experience? Well, you have references, and you keep on drawing things from those references until you can do it without looking at the references. And here we have some references. But if I have my Photoshop open here, and I want to draw some sort of art thing here, well, let's create a new canvas, or another, get this in the other window. So it's creating 3600 by 2400 canvas. If you have Photoshop open like me, and it's just filling your screen, it's kind of hard to have your references, unless you have another monitor, like I do. But if you don't have another monitor, then it's a good idea to have some sort of software that displays the references somewhere quite prominently, so you can constantly look at them. Because if you have to keep on switching between the browser and Photoshop, that's just not going to work. So what I typically use is a program called PureRef, and it looks like this. It's very, it's kind of large, but let me scale that down. Here we go. PureRef. If you don't know PureRef, let's go check it out. PureRef. Here you go, pureref.com, and you can download this thing. I think it's, you can donate a custom amount of money to these developers. It's a pretty good program, so like you can sell it something like 20 bucks. That's pretty good, right? So you download the thing, you install it, and you start using it. And what does it do? Well, let's say for an example that I like this character. I just copy the image, I throw it here, Control V, boom, it's there. Then let's say that I like this one a lot, so copy, throw it there. And maybe it's just like the face, so I don't want the whole thing to be on the screen. The specific image has to be selected, so I have that selected. I hold C on the keyboard, and I draw a rectangle. I can crop it. And by holding Control and Alt and dragging with the mouse, I can scale them up. Maybe here I like the sleeves or whatever, so I can just crop that. Boom. I have my references, right? Well, let's look at something real. I want to make something Space Marine-like, so maybe this one. This is looking pretty good. Let's open it up, copy the image, throw it there. It's not like Space Marine, but it's got some sort of armor going on. So that's what I like. This is looking pretty good. And by the way, if you open up an image in Pinterest and you scroll down, you can see more images that are kind of like that. So you can very, very easily find quite a bit of interesting references for your specific project. What else? Do we need something else? Let's pick that one. It's kind of cool. So minimize that thing. And here I want to crop this quite a bit. Oh yeah, you can reset cropping by pressing Control, Shift, and C. And it goes back to the normal ways. And by holding Shift and Alt and dragging to the side, you can mirror the image. And by holding Control, you can rotate them around. And with Control and Shift, it locks into these 45-degree increments. Pretty cool. Cool stuff. Alright, but so we have some references. Well, what do we do now? If we still have the same problem. The program goes away when we click the Photoshop thing. Okay, yeah, if we want this window to stay on top, you can right-click the canvas and you select Mode, and always on top, which is Control-Shift-A. So we can just hit Control-Shift-A, and now if you go to Photoshop, we can use Photoshop, but this thing is still in front. So what would I do with this? We have to select where we put this thing. I'm typically not using this area of the screen very much, so we can just have it there. By dragging with the second mouse button, you can move the window around, and by dragging with the middle mouse button, you can pan the things inside the window. Let me just select a brush, create a new layer, and start drawing. Of course, then we have to select some sort of interesting brush. Now I have this sort of very hard brush selected, which is, I don't really like sketching with this thing. Sometimes I do, but mostly not. It's mostly for outlines or details. So let's check out Transfer Around 2 that I have created. And this is more like it. I'm using a Wacom Cintiq tablet that allows me to do very interesting things like draw with a pen and then have different hardness levels to the brush strokes. But if you don't like the brush that you currently have, you can alter the brush by going to Window and selecting Brush Settings, which is also this little icon over here. Or you can press F5, that opens also. So what do we have for this brush? Well, it has this sort of soft round as the base shape, but then we have the hardness at 40% that sort of, it makes the sides of the brush softer or harder, and spacing at 5%. That what the brush is, it is a line, a continuing line of little dots, and you can actually just draw doing dots if that's what you like. But what I do is I typically put it to somewhere like 1%. It requires more processing power if it's at 1%, but for a simple round, it doesn't matter much. What else do we have? Well, not much. We also have transfer here. And what transfer does, if I turn this off, you can see what it does. So now I can't draw these little gray shades. So I put that on, and it's controlled by pen pressure. So now I'm controlling the thing by, if I press harder with the pen, I'm getting more of a solid color. We can also control the shape of the brush, and we can do things like setting the control of the size jitter to pen pressure. So now, if I'm pressing lightly, I'm getting a really, really narrow line. If I press hard, I'm getting more of a thick line. Alright, so additionally, what we can do in the shape dynamics, if we leave this one off, we can select the angle jitter, which is, it's controlling the angle of each of these little dots here. And we can set that to pen tilt, and we can also select the roundness jitter and set that to pen tilt as well. And what the Cintiq pens and some of the other manufacturers' pens also do is if you tilt them, so if you have the pen like this against the tablet, it's giving you a different result than if the pen is held like this. As you can see here, the angle and the roundness of the brush is changing based on which sort of angle I'm holding it in. So now I'm getting like almost a round one, but if I'm holding it like this, I'm getting different sort of results with it. So this can give you more control if you want to do some very detailed things somewhere along the line. But let's see how that works for us. Okay, so we're doing some sort of character like this one here, and we're zoomed in quite a bit. We're at 130% on the canvas. Let's go through some basic navigation controls in Photoshop. If you hold spacebar, you get this little hand icon, and then you can drag the canvas around like this. If you hold Control and spacebar, you can zoom in and zoom out. If you hold R on the keyboard, you can rotate the canvas. So if you have a difficult angle for some of the characters, you can draw the lines like this, then rotate it around and draw the other lines like this, if that makes more sense to you. Then you hit ESC on the keyboard and it defaults back to the normal view. Finally, if you have something drawn here, let's make some sort of simple character doodle, like this for example, you can always flip the canvas around by going to Image, Image Rotation, and Flip Canvas Horizontal. And I've actually set a shortcut for this one that is Control and Q, because I use that quite a bit. So if I hit Control and Q, I can easily flip the thing around to see if it makes sense in the other orientation. And let's go through quickly how you can set up hotkeys. You go to the edit menu and you go to keyboard shortcuts, or you can see here it's Alt Shift Control K. So hit all the modifier keys, Control Shift Alt and then K. It opens up this little window that has different shortcuts for different things. There are shortcuts for the tools. I've deleted most of the shortcuts for the tools because they are cumbersome. For example, magnetic lasso, I never used that, so I deleted the hotkey for that one, and so on and so forth. But if you go to the shortcuts for menu here, you can select application menus, which are the menus at the top here. So then we can go to image, and we can go to, here we go, image rotation and flip canvas horizontal, and you just hold Control Q on the keyboard, or Control S, Control Q, whatever you want to do. Hit accept and then save the current set of shortcuts, and hit OK, and then you have your modified shortcuts for your program.